Hi everyone, welcome to the Dream Brave podcast. Today we have a very special guest. He might not be a stranger to you, and he's none other than Cliff Tam, my husband. Okay, that's Cliff. So actually, if you notice the surroundings here, we are actually in the heart of Tanzania where we actually live, and this is a beautiful veranda actually built by one of our Norwegian friends. We've just come back to Tanzania to begin our second year here, and I've been really interested to want to interview Cliff about his story. As you know, Treasures of Darkness is about turning our grief into good through God's glory, and I've been really interested to ask Cliff about, what has been his greatest darkness in his life. As many of you know, Cliff wears many hats. He was previously an IT professional, and then he became a missionary. He was also an ex-stay-at-home dad for a season of his life. You also know that he had liver cancer, a transplant, and he's also an Ironman triathlete. So without further ado, Cliff, would you tell us a little bit about your story and what you consider to be one of the darkest seasons in your life?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess we can start off with my liver transplant. I wouldn't say it's the darkest season of my life, but I would say that it has a profound meaning to my life and also some challenges as well that comes with it. And so I had my liver transplant when I was 10, just before I turned 11, because of a liver tumor. So at that time, the doctor suggested that either cut part of the liver off or put me on the transplant list. So they decided to take the latter route. And so one day after school, my mom got a page. The hospital gave my mom a pager to notify her if there's a suitable match. So one day the pager buzzed. So she picked up the phone, called the hospital, and turns out that they found a suitable donor for me.
Wow.
So at that night, they wheeled me in the hospital, and the next thing I know, I got tubes hooking up everywhere. I was in ICU.
Right.
And and I had my liver transplant.
And you were 10 years old.
And I was 10 just before I turned 11.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Just to give the audience some context as well, that you actually were born and raised in Hong Kong before
That's
that.
correct.
And when you were about 8 years old, I remember you sharing with me that your parents and your family actually moved to Canada.
That's right.
And it was only in Canada at like a routine medical checkup. You had no symptoms at all.
No symptoms, yeah. So thank you for So my whole journey of the liver transplant, when you look at it, like now when I look at it as a father and also a bit older, I realize how severe how complicated the operation is, and how risky it is. But at that time when I was 10, I was really oblivious. Even though they told me it was cancer, I didn't realize the severity of it. I didn't realize I have a high chance of dying. I didn't realize, all the complications that can involve a liver transplant.
Right.
And yet, despite all that, my experience overall was very positive. So in that way, from the outside looking at it, you can see it's a darkness, but from the inside, me living through it is actually, I would say, it's a treasure. It's a light. Yeah.
Wow.
And so, part of that reason why I say it's light and how come I have such a positive experience is because I had the liver transplant at a Sickness Hospital, at a children's hospital in Toronto.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun. I have a lot of jello. I play a lot of video games.
Wow.
All the dreams a child can have, right? Of course, there's some pain. I have to do some tests. I take a lot of medicine.
And you had your 11th birthday in the hospital after your transplant?
Yeah, that's correct. So after the operation, after ICU, they wheeled me out to my own room. And a couple of days later, I celebrated my 11th birthday in the hospital.
Wow.
And, the solid food I ate after my operation was my birthday cake.
Wow, that's so crazy. Now, it's really interesting because for the first episode of our Treasures of Darkness series, I actually had the privilege of interviewing Cliff's mom. And it's so apt that I felt led to interview him to actually close the series because it's really amazing for me to see how, you told me that your dad was actually really worried. It was the first time you saw him cry. But your mom and you really have this, I call it this incandescent joy because I could see how you really bounce back or bounce through it even.
Yeah.
Right? You didn't feel, did you feel overwhelmed at any one point?
No, I would say that for my whole childhood growing up with a liver transplant and all the tests and, visits to the hospital afterwards was fairly, I would consider it normal for me. So I wouldn't consider it as negative or positive, just part of life.
Yeah.
And so now even going back to hospital, I always have a positive association with it.
Wow. Now that's so crazy for me. And actually, it's such an encouragement for me to hear this because I think as parents, we often feel like when our child has chronic illness, we always feel so bad for them and we always assume that they're going to have the worst start to life. And I can share this candidly because when Sarah Faith, our firstborn, was really, really young, like when she was less than 2, she had this chronic severe eczema that just wouldn't go away. And yet when she looks back at it, she hardly remembers a thing. And I find it so strange how Cliff can look back at that seemingly dark part of his childhood. And you have used the word great to describe it before, right?
I mean, even now, if my kids have a liver transplant, as a parent, as a father, I'd be like very worried, right? Because you just don't know, all the things that can go wrong, right? And it's always a complicated operation. It's crazy. So I think I would say that was so funny when you say treasure in darkness. I always assume that, I had to go through hard times. But I guess I was going through hard times, but I'm not even aware of it.
Wow.
That I think is in a way, I say it's God's grace.
Yes, absolutely. But I'm sure Cliff, it wasn't all smooth sailing for you. I guess I wanted to find out how your liver transplant has affected your growing up teenage years. Did it affect you making friends, fitting in? How did it affect you in your adult life? Even and even as you are embarking on several high-risk things, I always joke, Cliff likes to do high-risk activities like doing the Ironman, like going to dangerous places like Uganda, which requires a yellow fever vaccine, which you couldn't take. And even recently, we actually had to fly back to Singapore earlier because Cliff had a very atypical tick infection, which caused his liver to be inflamed. And so there are all these complications. So we just want to paint a realistic picture that it's not all rosy. And how have you been able to wrestle with all of this?
I think, okay, so for me, right, okay, I'm just gonna say that growing up, at the high school, university, I don't have any issues with my liver transplant, and I was very thankful. I mean, it's really God's grace covering me because I was just a child, teenager, young adult, at least a teenager. I don't care about my health that much, right? I eat chips, I drink Coke, I eat all type of junk food which, my wife as a mother forbid my children to have, right? For me, it's part of growing up. And so even in university, I used to drink so much alcohol, which is not good for the liver, obviously, but at that time I didn't care, right? And so I would say, even into the triathlon season. So after university, I started doing triathlon and marathons and all those endurance sports and really pushing my body, to the limit. And yet, despite all those, I wouldn't say my transplant was a hindrance to what I can do or cannot do, because my liver transplant specialist who managed my case, never say that oh, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that.
Right.
I'm sorry to say, in fact, anyway, so
what?
Okay. So in Canada, we're a bit liberal. Okay, so when I finished at the children's hospital and I transferred to the adult hospital when I turned 18 or something like that, the first time I saw my liver specialist in the adult hospital, right? He came up to me and said, "Cliff, you have a liver transplant for so long. You can do whatever you want. You're very healthy. You can drink. You can even smoke. You can even take drugs." And I'm like, whoa.
That's so funny.
And it's just funny, right?
From a doctor?
Yeah, from a doctor,
That's
right?
so funny.
So of course, he probably knows that in university, everybody like to try stuff. Anyway, so I didn't get into that, but I did drink a lot. But so I just want to paint that picture of I wasn't like, oh, I should not do this, I should not do that. Right. And my parents generally, they're not like I would say the worry sort. They're not like, oh, you cannot go out and ride your bike, you cannot go out and do this. Right. So generally, I was quite a easygoing child or have a teenager growing up.
So this is this is where I see a lot of similarities between Cliff's mom and Cliff, which I find really mind-blowing because I think both of you have the same resilience and that same joyfulness. And I think I would say that if you're a parent with a child with a chronic illness, I would say that your children really pick up your vibes, your spirit, and you impart to them whatever that you imbibe and you live out. So I can see that whatever Cliff's mom had, and she was saying it was no problem, we're trying to save money, we had half a donut every day while visiting
so
Cliff.
Crazy,
and you never even heard that story, right?
I never heard of the story until
I interviewed her.
last year, right? I was 44, I'm 45 anyways. So I would say that period of my life,
Yeah.
I was healthy as normal as I can be.
Wow.
And really really a miracle because
Yeah.
I had no contribute to make it happen.
Okay, but I have a big question. Like,
Yeah.
what made you think that you could push your body to the extent of an Ironman? Because an Ironman is not a
Oh.
small feat. It's a 3.8 kilometer swim, 180 kilometer bike ride, then a full marathon after that. I would think that even a normal person might get injured. They might, suffer from extreme, rhabdomyolysis or whatever.
Yeah,
Like,
which I had.
which
2
you
years
had
ago.
before,
2 years ago.
actually, 2 years
Yeah,
ago.
yeah.
So how did you actually live
Go.
your life? Yeah.
So I never see my liver transplant as a limitation or for my
Wow.
physical ability or capability.
Wow.
So before sorry, let me kind of backtrack a bit.
Sure.
Growing up, I'm not very athletic.
Right.
So I'm not like the guy who's like really good at sports. I'm always the last one who get chosen to be on a team, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. But yet, going to university, I started to pick up weightlifting with my friend, like working out at the gym. And then I got like really big, really buff. And then at the same time, I also started to jog a bit more. So I used to go like, just for fun, like 5K and so. So it wasn't like, some crazy triathlon. But after university, I picked up road cycling with my friend.
Yeah.
And I haven't ridden a bike for like, 8 years since I was a child. But yet, when I was road cycling and slowly the mileage started to pick up.
Right.
We started doing like 100K, and then I remember one time we did 180K. So by the time I look at the triathlon and look at Ironman, in my mind, I just think it's actually quite possible because, if you look at the distance, I already rode 180K bike. So in my mind, I just think that if I learn how to swim again and learn how to do a marathon and just put it all together,
Right.
I can make it happen. It's possible. It's possible.
Wow.
And I also look at because I think they give you like 17 hours to do it or
Wow.
18 hours.
Yeah.
So if I break it down to like, I swim the slowest, like 2 hours that's a cutoff time. If I swim 2 hours for that 3.8 kilometer, which is really, really slow.
Right.
If I bike for like 8 hours for 180K, which is really slow, it's like 20K per hour, very, very slow on a road bike. And then if and then you have like 8 hours to do a marathon. You can practically walk the marathon for 8 hours.
Wow.
It's hard, it's long, but it's doable. It's not like, it's not going to kill you per se. It's just very, very boring. It's very, very long.
Okay. I know some of you must be laughing right now if you're having lunch or in the gym listening to any clip. Sounds so, like, to me, like, that really sounds ridiculous. But I think, what's crazy, Cliff? Like, okay, I just had this fresh thought. Like, I've never shared this with you, Cliff, but I just had this epiphany that I really, really wonder, like, how you are able to think of such impossible things and you break them down into such bite-sized pieces. I mean, my joke is always that after realizing that Cliff could put himself through so much pain for such an excruciatingly long time, that's when I decided that he would have the resume to be married to me for a long time. So that's the joke that I always tell. But really, I think I really wonder whether it was the impossibility of your liver transplant that gave you that foundation, even if in a subconscious way, of how the impossible could happen. Because in my opinion, like you think about it, you've always told me, like, what were the chances that the liver transplant were discovered first by accident at a routine medical checkup when you were asymptomatic, and also when you had free healthcare when your family decided to move from Hong Kong to Canada. Like these are all like such impossible things. And even when we were dating, I always tell people I was typing to my online stalker because that's how, I mean, if you watch the video, then you'll know that, we just met by accident online. It was not an online dating site. It was it was just really, really random. I mean, the fact that Cliff could even think like, oh yeah, like one day I will marry this girl at the other part of the world, it's just so insane.
Well, I never thought about marrying. I just want to get together. I mean, I did think about marriage, but not like, but like how I get there, I don't know. But
you mean you didn't want to marry me?
I do want to. I just don't know how I'll get there. I never think about the plan it, next step.
You just did one small step at a time, right?
I think, I actually contribute this. Like when I look back, I'm like, the mindset, first of all, we just stated out loud, which I'm sure most of you are aware that, like, you can see that my mindset when it comes to doing an Ironman triathlon or endurance sports, it's not like, oh, I cannot do it, it's too long. It's like, how can I get it there? It's actually possible. Break it down to the steps.
Wow.
So that's my mindset approaching it. It's never like about, oh, it cannot be done. It's rather like, how can I do it? But at the same time, I feel like part of this mindset, I think it's fostered, and in a way, it's fostered from my parents, I would say.
Right.
Because they, like, growing up, I think because of my transplant, my parents gave me a lot of leeway to do what I want to do.
Right.
Like, for example, okay, there's a lot of stereotypes. So like as being, someone born from Hong Kong, all the Cantonese, Chinese kids will always learn piano. I never learned piano because my parents never forced me to learn piano,
Right.
or forced me to study well,
Yep.
or forced me to study hard so that I can get good grades, can get good school, can get good job. My parents never really like forced me per se to say, oh, you must do well. And my grades were horrible. Like, it's up and down all over the place. And I think they gave me a lot of leeway to let me explore what I like and don't like. And I think somehow when it comes to triathlon, I always feel like I just stumbled into this sport. It ended up being my passion. And not because I decided to set it out. It's just like, oh, I just want to try this. And my parents didn't say no. And so I just go and do it. And the next one I know, it's just like one door leads to another,
Wow.
leads to an Ironman, leads to whatever.
Wow.
And so I think a lot of that has to do with
Mindset.
yeah, in mindset, also part of maybe upbringing. I think my parents, unlike
Right.
other Asian parents, really gave me that space to like, doesn't define me by like, oh, if you're not an engineer or go to
Right.
specific
True.
university, you're not a good child
Yeah.
or whatnot. Which for me is not very Asian, right? Because
Yeah.
Asians, we tend to stick to certain schools and jobs, right? So that,
Yeah.
because it's safe, it's secure, it's also
Wow.
probably bring a bit of honor to the family. And my parents just kind of, okay, here and do and whatever you want, that kind of attitude.
Yeah.
Of course, that's not safe per se. So I think, like, now I think back about it, a lot of that contributed to me doing a triathlon and then
Sure.
starting that
Wow.
path, and I don't know where it leads.
Wow. I think one thing that really strikes me is this whole idea of the spirit and the mindset that we carry. I mean, your mom, even though she didn't know God, like Christ in
Yeah.
a deep way at the time, I mean, I think she was like a nominal Catholic, but never went to church, that sort of thing.
Even I wasn't a Christian
Yeah.
until after university.
Yeah, I think even though she didn't know God at that time, there was this sense of resilience. And of course, after we got married, I led her to Christ, and now she's really a woman filled with faith, as you might have heard in her previous interview. And something that strikes me is that maybe the lesson that we can really glean from this, at least one treasure that I'm learning from you and your mom, is that a parental mindset can be so far-reaching. Because your life could have been completely different. I mean, it could have been devastated from the start. Your parents could have been like, oh, my child has a transplant, he's forever on cyclosporin, will get sick all the time, never have a girlfriend, right? But your mom wasn't like that at all. Yeah.
So, yeah, I think, I mean, there's so many factors and whatnot, but I say the parental factor also have a huge part to play in how
Yeah.
I become who I am, actually. I mean, I guess all of us do. And I remember like only like way after my transplant, like, like when I'm 27, my dad told me that like, oh, when I was having my liver transplant, my dad wasn't even working.
Right.
I mean, he got laid off and whatnot.
Right.
So we're living on like one income, which is very minimal.
Mhm.
And so, like, only when I hear that, and now that as a father and, get to take care of kids and paying the bills, you realize how severe the situation is in my family.
Yeah.
Yet when I was in the hospital, when my parents come and see me every day, they don't show that. They didn't get stressed out. They didn't get upset.
Right.
They're not overly worried about money.
Yeah.
I'm sure they do. I mean, but yet, I just remember they even brought me toys and stuff like that. So it's such a important. It helps me to grow. Yeah.
I mean, this is such an important memory, but Cliff has always shared with me also, I think after the transplant, the hospital sent you to like Disneyland,
Yeah,
right, in Florida. I was like, what? Like, what kind of hospital is this? It's amazing.
So, in Canada, there's a NGO called Make-A-Wish Foundation.
Okay.
And so they really just make a wish for kids who are
chronic illnesses.
Chronic illness or terminal disease.
Yeah.
So somehow I got into that list
That's
after
so
my
crazy.
transplant.
That is so crazy.
It's like 2 years afterwards.
Yeah.
And then one day they sent me, just me alone with other kids, the kids, and also the nurses, take a plane from Toronto, fly to Florida, to go to Disney World for one day and then fly back. All free. It's like, wow, that's so crazy.
That is insane.
Like,
and that's why I say it's mind-boggling how Cliff has had such a childhood full of such good memories, when
Despite the darkness.
Yeah, it's so crazy. It's so crazy. Okay, now Cliff, like, a lot of our listeners who have been following us, actually, so many of you have written to us sharing sharing about how our journeys with illnesses, chronic pain, chronic illness has really encouraged you. And actually, we've been encouraged by your stories.
Yeah, thank you.
And you know, one of the things that I find very encouraging is how your health has actually improved. Can you share a little bit about that? You know, like your cyclosporin levels when we first met compared to now, your hair, the hair color, you know? Yeah, share a little bit about that, please.
Okay, so my cyclosporin level has always been very high through my whole.
And what is
liver transplant.
cyclosporin?
Okay, so when I had a liver transplant, because the liver is not part of my body, it's on someone else's body, my body will try to attack it because it's a foreign object.
Yeah.
So what this medicine do is to lower my immune system so that my body can accept the liver.
Yeah.
And the side effect of this medication, cyclosporin, is that it's very not good for the body. It's very hard on the kidneys. And so, you know, what you want to do is to have lowest dosage possible so that you can have longevity.
And because there are so many side effects as well. Yeah.
But at the same time, you don't want to have a dosage so low that your body starts to attack the liver.
Yeah.
Right. So you need that balance, right? So when I first met Wai Jia, I think I was taking 100 milligrams twice a day.
Yeah.
So, you know, and then one day Wai Jia looked at my blood results, the liver, because they do routine blood check on me, liver functions, obviously, but they also check the cyclosporin level, right? She looked at the cyclosporin level, she's like, through the roof, it's like a couple hundreds.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, what? It's always been like that. You know, I've been healthy for the past, 20 plus years, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And so, Wai Jia able to find a liver specialist in Singapore, and together with him, he helped me lower the dosage from 100 milligrams to now, 100 milligrams twice a day to 25 milligrams twice a day.
Wow,
right?
That's like a quarter.
Just so that I can live longer and spend more time with Wai Jia.
I'm not sure if that's a good thing anymore,
That's
guys.
the real plan, guys. That's the real plan.
Anymore. I might have just shot myself in the foot.
So,
and
because of
hair.
so growing up, I always have like a lot of white hair. You know, maybe it's just part of genetics. You know, and so when I met Wai Jia, after marrying to Wai Jia for so many years, after eating her fabulous cooking,
can I say, guys,
good healthy food from her. You know, I don't know if my hair got more black. I think it did. So
it definitely did.
Look more youthful per se. Anyway, so it's so funny. Yeah. So these are some of the things that like someone with a liver transplant or organ transplant, transplant recipient, you know, it's the longevity that you have to worry about. You know, like you don't want to have because I'm a liver transplant, but I don't want to have kidney issues because I'm taking cyclosporin too much, right? So and kidney issues tends to it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, you know. So now I have my liver transplant for like 30 years, hitting 35, almost hitting 40 years now. So that's really long. Yeah.
And you're looking better than ever. I really wanted to share this
Yeah.
because, you know, a lot of people with chronic illnesses, even with me when I had chronic pain, like I think so much of the rumination, of the catastrophization is actually so much to do with the fear of things getting worse.
Yes.
We always think that things will never get better, but I think Cliff is such a living testimony of how things can actually get better. Like his cyclosporins now are better than before. His friends, not even me, actually tell him that, wow, how come your hair now is so black, so thick? Because it's true, when I first met him, he had thin hair. Most of it was white. It was different. It was so, look at his hair now, man.
I think, man, I do think that like even for me, like every time I do a blood test, right?
Yeah.
There's always part of me saying that, okay, you know what, your liver number's gonna go up, something's gonna turn bad. And usually the numbers are good, right? But I think, when you say that as someone with a chronic illness, that, you always ruminate that like things will be bad. That even I experienced that, like, so I think because you just don't know, and by the time, like, if a liver is really failing, like they're so serious, then you're like, you will see it because like yellow skin, yellow eyes, or jaundice. But I never have any of those.
Okay, but to be fair, you did have some crisis. Like when Cliff first proposed to me, he had
before I came to Singapore.
Before he came to Singapore, and at that time, like, before our proposal, he actually had a serious liver crisis, and the doctors didn't know what to do. They did all the tests. They even did a biopsy on him, and basically there was no conclusion as to what caused the hepatitis. So they actually attributed it to some virus. virus, but they didn't know what it
Viral
was. And
infection.
again, the same thing happened like when we had to fly back to Singapore recently, when Cliff had his fever that wouldn't abate and we couldn't find the cause of it. I decided to fly us back early, and in the end, it turned out that his liver was, very, very much inflamed. There was a worry of transplant rejection, all these things. So it's not like totally smooth sailing.
Yes.
But the truth is that I think God has been so faithful.
Yes.
And we don't want to paint like every chronic illness to be like, oh, if you have faith, then you will definitely overcome. God will definitely make you better. I mean, we do trust that God is a God who wants to heal and loves to heal. But I think we also want to share like the nuances that there are ups and downs in your journey. It's not totally smooth sailing. I mean, during those times when you had the liver crisis and also when we had to fly back, I mean, you were really scared, right? Those are real times.
I think, when I had my liver crisis before we got together, we got married, I almost felt like I was going to die because at that time, my blood pressure was like through the roof.
Feel well.
And I didn't feel well. I mean, there's no outward symptoms of a liver failure, right? There's no pain, no yellow skin, no jaundice, right? But the liver numbers were through the roof, and then my blood pressure was also through the roof, and then I can feel my my blood pressure pulsating in my head,
right?
And I was like, oh my goodness, is this the end? Is this the end of like all the binge drinking I used to do in university is coming to this, right? And then all of a sudden when I did the biopsy and they say, oh, your liver is normal, the liver cells are healthy. And then all of a sudden everything just went back to normal, right? And so that was one part. The second part, the second point you want to talk about is like just recently with my inflamed liver from the virus.
Right.
And I think that one is a bit more real, I say, because I also have like a huge fever for like 7-8 days and it wouldn't go away. And also now I have like kids, I have you, there are a lot of, I guess.
The cost is higher.
The cost is higher. Cost is much higher. And so I think this time, I was thinking like, and there was a possibility that we will not come back to Tanzania. But there's a possibility we're going to stay in Singapore to run more tests or treatment for the liver, right? And now I'm a lot older. Right now it's like, the liver is going on for like, 40 plus years now, almost 30 plus, So 30 something, 40, So you start to think about like, am I gonna die?
Sure.
And I think, I know God can heal, God did miracles, but at the same time, God also, like, none of us live forever. That's the reality. And I think for me, what really set into my mind is that the greatest peace I can give to myself in this situation, not knowing what tomorrow will be, not knowing what my test result will be like, is reflecting on how God has been faithful for the past many years, right? Because the reality is, if there's no liver transplant, I'll be dead already. Like, I'll be dead by 11.
True.
That's the reality. Liver cancer would take my life, and that's it. But yet, despite that, all the impossibility of like migrate to Canada, get, random check, finding out there's a liver cancer and find a suitable donor just in time.
What are the chances?
What are the chances of all those? It's just, and also continue to live this life for the past 30 plus years and then married to you and then having 2 kids. And I think
at that time when Cliff had a crisis, I just prayed to God that I would just have 3 good years of marriage. Now we're on year 13 and I'm thinking, man, why did I? What happened?
Maybe God's punishing you. Anyways, so I realize, I come to the conclusion that God is faithful. And whatever happened next, God is in control. Even though if the test turns bad, though my liver gonna fail, God is in control because my days are numbered in His eyes. And so, can I pull the Bible first now?
Yeah. I was going to ask you, Cliff, can you share with us one Bible verse that has really encouraged you through these dark times? And actually, as we come to a landing point, Cliff, I wonder if you could close with actually sharing with everybody I know I didn't prepare you for this. I like to keep him on his toes.
Always surprise.
Yeah, I like to surprise Cliff always. And it's always like on stage or something. I want you to tell everybody, tell everyone the verse, but also the encounter with God that you had when you were finishing your Ironman. Can we end with that? Because I think that was such a personal... So, the verse first.
Okay, let's do the first verse.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so this is taken from Luke chapter 12, verse 7. Indeed, the very hairs on your head are all numbered, and they're mostly black. That's not from the Bible, okay? All numbered. Don't be afraid, you are worth more than many sparrows. Right? So in this, if you look at the context of what Jesus was saying to the disciples, is that don't be scared. God takes care of the sparrows. God will take care of you. And the disciples, many of them get persecuted for sharing the faith, for being follower of Jesus. And Jesus can still say, hey, don't be scared. God is with you. God will take care of you much more than what you think you will, right? And so I think the humbling reality is that, as I get older and with the crisis we had like earlier this year, is the fact that there's very little I'm in control of our health. Just health in general. There's really little I have control. Of course, I eat well, exercise, all that stuff. But God is the one who has control. And so the more I surrender to Him and trust in Him, the better it is.
Yeah, I totally agree with that because like where we are right now, medical care is extremely poor. And we've had friends who have been in traffic accidents and all that. They have to be flown out. So, I mean, with Cliff's condition, we're always wondering, like, do we want to live in fear or do you want to live in faith? And do we want to be foolhardy or is it obedience? We're constantly like wrestling with these tensions, But on that note, Cliff, can you share with us the encounter with God that you had? Because I think that was very like, it was such a foundation, of your faith.
So when I was doing the Ironman triathlon, so it's the end of the race. So in order to get the distance, you got to run like 2 kilometers out and 2 kilometers back before you hit the finish line. So we started in the morning and now it's late at night. I know I'm going to finish because, I can still run. I'm very tired, but, it's done. So as I was running, I started to give thanks to God because He has, given me this chance to race. The month before the race, I had a hairline fracture on my shoulder.
So
and
crazy.
I almost think about like, not doing the race, but then my friend would say, hey, just swim one hair. Crazy, right? Athletes are crazy, right? Just swim one hair, it's possible. People have done it. Anyways, but I was able to swim fine, I was recovered well. And so I was giving thanks to God for so many things. And then at the time I have an encounter with Jesus, I felt Jesus spoke to me, say, that all in my head, of course. And He spoke to me saying that, let me show you what you were like before. And then he brought me memories of me getting drunk, passing out at my friend's house on like, on my birthday and all those memories of university drinking. And for me, that's when I realized that, I'm a sinner because I was like, I was drunk and I was so addicted to alcohol, and yet I felt His love and His forgiveness of it, of His grace, saying that, I'm still with you. And for me, I interpret it as God loves me, God forgive my sins. So I was like running really hard, really, really tired, sweaty over, and I started to cry. It's really funny. Anyway, so that had become a very
pivotal moment.
Yeah, very pivotal moment of my spiritual life.
Right.
And I would say that was one of the moments where I become even stronger to follow Jesus, where Jesus become much more real in my life. Because end of that year, I signed a contract to seek God. Now I do. And the next one I know, this desire to do missions, to help the poor, all the stuff that sort of flows up. And then now here we are in Africa.
Tanzania. Oh my gosh, Cliff, I just had another thought, which I've never shared with you before. But it's so amazing how you had that encounter with Jesus during the last part of the Ironman, which is actually so symbolic of a so-called impossible feat for somebody with a liver transplant. And with that, I think it's a perfect way to, wrap up our conversation that, sometimes God can do incredible things even with us who go through pain and chronic illnesses. So those of you who are listening, if you struggle with a chronic illness, somebody who has a chronic illness, you have a child who struggles with a chronic illness, we just want to encourage you that God can really exceed our expectations. And sometimes He can turn our deepest griefs into His greatest good. Because who would have imagined that a little boy with liver cancer in Hong Kong, who would have thought that little boy was worthy to be saved, was worthy to be transformed, and worthy to be such an inspiration to all of us around the world. And that is why, in spite of all of Cliff's quirks and irritations to me, that I decided to marry him.
I think you discovered the quirks and irritation after you married me. Too late now.
No, but seriously, that's why I think you've really been an inspiration to me. So thank you, Cliff.
Thank you. I think even for me, I feel like my life is really, I'm just riding along like a roller coaster. And God is just kind of guiding me along the way. And I don't know where He's leading me, but I think this whole lesson is according to trust in God, draw close to Him, and learn what it means to really trust in Him and put my faith in Him and my hope in Him.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so great. So thank you everyone for
Thank
joining with us.
you.
We hope you enjoyed this Treasures of Darkness series, and we hope that we will be sharing more stories with you from the field. Have a wonderful, wonderful week ahead.
Bye-bye.
If you enjoy this podcast, would you do me a favor? Leave a review on the podcast so that more people can discover what it means to dream bravely for Christ. And if you know someone you think would be wonderful for me to interview, or if that person's you, drop me a note at hello@kitedreams.org. See you next time.